Ruth asked me to do this, and I couldn't say no. Yesterday at 4 p.m., I sat down to piece together all my attempts to write out my faith journey. My nervousness aside, I thought this would be a good opportunity to express my gratitude to you, who have lifted us up through Dan's and my trials with cards, flowers, visits. Along with Dan's spirits, mine have been lifted too. You have been practicing your faith with your actions, and we're the beneficiaries. Dan has been enduring the pain, the loss, and has had to measure up and literally stand up to his adversity. I have 2 legs, and so whatever there is, I have no complaints. Through the years we've been at the church on the Cape, I've been inching my way closer to God. The power of the faith that God stands by shows up with warm smiles among us and direct eye contact that say, I care. I know that Jesus floats among us, ready to be leaned on. Our neighbor Bill, who has been cutting our lawn for 2 seasons now, said that Jesus was in our backyard last year. The day he told me about it, I ran out to see where. He had taken a picture to prove it so he could show Dan, who was lying on the couch with his foot up above his heart. It was a pine tree that I had trimmed, but the unexpected result did look like the body of Jesus suspended on the cross. Timing is everything. Prior to Dan's unreasonable incarceration, I'd spent a year anxious and depressed. I barely squeaked my psyche through our older daughter's wedding. The lithium that I had just begun to take hadn't kicked in yet, but by the time Dan's situation grew more serious, I began to rally. The bottomless pit of despair gave way to hope and the opportunity to deal with feelings that had gone numb. My father taught me to say prayers at night. He really got me rolling with "Now I lay me down to sleep." But he took out the "if I die" part. To God bless every member of our family and the dog. My father introduced me to God. He took me to Sunday schools and finally later to an Episcopal boarding school. There were times when I felt I wasn't good enough to go to church or even look at the cross. How could I take communion? Only once, when I was invited to go along to a high school retreat, did I feel comfortable. I was younger than the other kids because I was babysitting for one of the chaperone's daughters. The kids were nice and they were fun and respectful of me. They were much older, but they made me feel as if I belonged. My high school was a boarding school and it was like a nunnery. Not only were we locked up, so to speak, we had chapel every day of the week except for Saturday. Fortunately, there were no vows involved. We began each school day with a chapel service that, after a few months, semesters, and years, began to grow on me. We were required to memorize prayers that we used in our service, and my little Episcopal prayer book grew worn with use. The prayers, hymns, mini-sermons, and lighting of the altar candles caught me up to a grateful place. I had time to be quiet, recite beautiful, meaningful prayers, and best of all, I learned to pray with my knees on the bench in front of me. It was my private time with God. It was as if I was in a phone booth with him, and he was listening, and I talked. This is what I want to rekindle now. Right now, I mumble messages to God through the day, often angry when I miss a stretch of time and I've forgotten to connect with him because I need him. Then in school, there were many mornings when I asked his help to get me through history exams or French tests. Chapel was an asset, and it's too bad that when I left, I thought I left God behind. When Dan and I were living in Connecticut, the kids were young, and I began to work at an Episcopal nursery school up the street. Robin and Alyssa went to the same school, and I loved it. We had chosen well. It had the same feeling as this place. There was a director who had a great long skirt, and when I brought my child in, she would kneel down and swoop her skirt around her and smile and look directly into the eyes of my child. And she had so much love and care and concern for her. It felt like the church on the Cape. The church had a chapel, and we would take our classes to the chapel once a week to pray, to sing. These little kids, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was a special commitment to me, to introduce these children to God, to teach them that he's a bulwark of strength that would always be there for them. I'm not sure how long that lasted, but I hope it did for some. Religion knocked on my door at our new home in Maine and gave me a chance to become reacquainted with church. Our neighbors begged us to go to an adorable little church in Cape Porpoise. Just come once, they said. Beaten down, we gave in. I didn't, maybe you know who they are. Anyway, the Benders. I didn't believe in all of it, the covenants of faith. I didn't know enough. It didn't seem to matter. What mattered was to go. I saw many happy people whose company I enjoyed. I found I had a voice, singing that is. It started out like chicken scratch, but it got better, and I was shocked and pleased that this could happen. My emotions rocked with sadness and empathy over the terrible adversities of the members of the church and the adversities that they were suffering. I joined the ministry of caring and wrote many notes, and it's impossible, I found out, to write notes to everyone. But I wanted to. I have spent a lot of time in Portland at the rehab center. God is definitely in that place. The cruelties that happen to people unrolled and unrolled before our eyes. We thought Dan had a problem. He did, but others were suffering. And the staff there know how to try to take care of the problems that roll through their doors. There is one Indian doctor there in particular who is disabled and walks with crutches every day. He lifts himself up and moves forward. I am not sure how he gets up in the morning, gets dressed, drives his car to work, and then takes care of these patients. And he's also one of the best doctors I have ever seen. When he looked at Dan, his eyes just seemed to pull all of Dan into him, into his brain. And they seemed to bore through him such a gentle understanding of what was making Dan tick. He listened. I think he's a saint. A member of our church met me at the cheese dairy section at the back of Hannaford a couple of years ago, and we talked briefly about our needs as they related to our church and our needs through the week. He told me that I have Christ in me. I hadn't forgotten. This was kind of a piece of revelation to me. I certainly heard it before because Ruth talks about it all the time, and we talk about it. But it has stayed with me. I haven't forgotten what he said. I run the statement through me, and I immediately get caught up with a sweet strengthening. My posture improves, and I focus on what I can do for someone. My friend Kate in Memphis is a fundamentalist. I think that's what you call it. She has sent me little books, easy ones to pick up. A message a day kind. She really wants me to take up religion and to be as peaceful as she is. I think she has a good thing going. At Christmas, she sent me God-wink stories, a little Christmas card that said joy on it. I want joy, and so I tuck it in books. As a reminder, I was thrilled to get that book, especially after hearing Laverne's talk about her journey of faith. I thought she invented God-winks. An old friend of mine brought me a porcelain-covered dish from England with Doolittle honey written on the lid. It became my stash for taglines from Yoga Tea. Before God came back into my life, tea bags were my lifeline. Looking for some kind of faith, I seized my morning tea bag line and greedily read my lesson and drank my tea. I've been collecting taglines for years, till Saladas was first, along with the China animals. I've been collecting them, and Good Earth has them too, and sometimes they hit the nail on the head, giving me inspiration and affirmation. I could feel my battery getting charged, along with a humorous clip from Bob Edwards. My day began. One of my prized honeypot taglines is, "Artists who seek perfection in everything are those who cannot attain it in anything." I had a serious flaw while desperately seeking love. Becoming pregnant wasn't what I meant to do. In the larger circle of my life, I pray that she became the boon to her adoptive family, like my own children are to me. I picked up my baggage and wended my way into a marriage and parenthood. I had a career in early childhood education and in the children's room at our local library. Later, I would understand more. Later, and luckily, I would have an early retirement. The crowning glory was becoming a grandparent. There were endless gifts coming my way, but I didn't know how to receive them and fully appreciate them because my secrets were taking up too much room. This prayer was sent to me by another saint, a Brazilian woman I know who lives in Tulsa. She sends me brilliant, edifying, inspiring quotes and literary references, just like Ruth. This one is a prayer, and it says, "O God, who makes all things new, new stars, new dust, new life, take my heart, every hardened edge and measured beat, and create something new in me. I need your newness, God, the rough parts of me made smooth. The stagnant stirred, the stuck freed, and the unkind forgiven. And then by the power of your Spirit, I need to be turned toward love again." That was written by Pamela Hawkins. When does a child want to know where she or he came from? They want to know their blood roots, their origins. Ruth's sermon on Esau and his brother Jacob was the first of a two-part series on depression. As we all know, Ruth is no slouch. When she chooses her topic, she hits us where we need it the most. I'm a good example of a sitting duck, and I even played the sermon over again on the church website to make sure I didn't miss anything. Nevertheless, this is the story that Ruth chose to tell again. Esau was the hunter, but his brother was quiet, a homebody, cooking. Jacob prepared a meal one day that looked so delicious to his brother that when he returned from his hunting, he asked Jacob to share it. But Jacob was a wise man and thoughtfully considered his brother's request. He told his brother, "First, sell your birthright." Esau, not taking a moment to see the long view, grabbed the bowl and agreed to his brother's bargain. In that one moment, he gave up his right to be the leader of his clan and receive a major part of his inheritance. He gave up his birthright. This connects me to an enormous effort in New York State to change adoption law so that adoptees might have access to their original birth certificates and medical histories. I can understand my parents' failings. I love them unconditionally, trusting that there was nurture and love. I was mistaken. Their parenting was pretty miserable, but we all turned out fairly okay. We can see, we can hear, we can taste, feel, smell, and care about each other. These are amazing gifts. The bursts of insights in my 6th decade were revelations. Could I have made it through this last decade without knowing that Jesus was in my backyard? No. Dogs have played an important part in my life, too. The last dog of influence was Alyssa's full-bred Australian Shepherd. Because she became Alyssa's constant company, protector, and best friend, I loved her, too. She lived a good life, finally dying in Vermont after her starting out in Oregon. The day that Alyssa dug the hole in the garden meadow for Ruby was for Ruby to settle in. Alyssa found a saying written in German that translated, "Every life has its measure of sorrow. Sometimes this just causes our awakening." Dan is home now, and we begin again. He'll take time to heal, and then he'll walk again. Gratitude seeds any doubt about what lies ahead. You, this church, help to infuse in me necessary strength to put my feet on the floor in the morning and face whatever comes. Like a member of our church told me once, we can decide what kind of a day we're going to have, or try. Amelia Earhart's life was astonishing. As most of you know, she was also a writer and a poet. And so, maybe you've heard this, but this is really a favorite. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. The soul that knows it not, knows no release from little things, knows not the livid loneliness of fear, nor mountain heights, where bitter joy can hear the sound of wings. How can life grant us boon of living, compensate for dull gray ugliness and pregnant hate, unless we dare the soul's dominion? Each time we make a choice, we pay with courage to behold resistless day and call it fair. It's a wonder to see sunlight streaming through these stained glass windows. It was also a wonder yesterday to see little and big mushrooms growing all over my backyard and my bright pink phlox. It's a wonder to see our church school children take turns to light the candles. We are a community here, a little piece of what is right with the world. Our music makes our hearts sing. We suffer each other's struggles. We pray, we make fruit cup and custard. And if we could, we'd spare each other any suffering. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for listening.